let me start by welcoming you all. Welcome to Pillow Talks, welcome to Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival. First, a little advertising. These talks happen on Saturday and occasionally on Sunday afternoons. Tomorrow we will be screening the film called Obsessed with Light. It's a new documentary that considers the long relationship between concert dance and theatrical lighting with a focus on Loie Fuller, which includes an interview with Moses Pendleton, whom I'll introduce in a moment. Filmmaker Sabine Krayenbuhl will be on hand to talk about it after the screening. You can find out about the films, the talks, all the kinds of workshops that are happening on the grounds and out and about in the Berkshires this summer on either the Pillow website or in the festival brochure, because there's a really lot going on, of course. Now on to today. The title of today's talk is You, the Choreographer. Don't worry, you're not going to have to test your skills yet. We took the title of this talk from this book sitting next to me. I'm going to offer very brief introductions of the two gentlemen joining me because we want to hear from them. You can find their bios in the book or online. First off, Vladimir Angelov is the founding director of Dance Icons, which stands for the International Consortium for Advancement and Networking Services. This is a global association for choreographers based in Washington, D.C. He is also a choreographer and now author of this book. And Moses Pendleton, choreographer, dancer, gardener, photographer, and master illusionist. He first appeared here at the Pillow 50 years ago this summer as a member of Pillabolus, which he co-founded. And he is here this week as artistic director of MOMIX, which he founded, appearing this week to the delight of audiences in the Ted Shawn Theater. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Yep. It's a pleasure to ask you who was in
Wait, don't get ahead of me. Don't get ahead of me.
No, am I jumping ahead of you?
You're jumping ahead of me.
Okay,
My next line says,
I'll just
first,
pull back. I'll pull back.
First, a little setup.
False alarm. Oh, you got to set it up. Okay.
I want to start by saying to all of you the same things that I say when I meet a class of new choreography students at University of Maryland, where I am on the faculty when I'm not here at the Pillow. Making dances is the best thing in the world, and being in the room with choreographers in the midst of a creative process is exciting, it's mysterious, it's fun, it's playful, it's incredibly hard, and incredibly rewarding. That's what's shaping our conversation today. What does it mean to be a choreographer, and how do you learn to make a dance? The three of us all know that you've not yet maybe had a chance to read this book yet. And maybe you haven't yet seen the MOMIX show. Some of you, I think this is what Moses was just going to ask you, some of you may have just been in the theater this afternoon. Some of you are going to see the performance tonight or tomorrow. Don't worry, though. No quiz on either one of these things, because we're going to be talking about the choreography, choreographer, and creative process. Now you can ask your question.
I think it's okay. I will do the best I can, given the circumstances. Go ahead. What was your question? I'm waiting.
No, I think you were going to ask who was in the theater this afternoon.
Oh, yes. Now it's time for me to say who did go to the theater without standing up. Yes. You can lie about it. A
few people here were in the show.
Oh, well,
excellent.
Thanks for staying on, for another act of whatever. It's really nice of you.
I have had the privilege, though, of seeing the show multiple times this week and reading the book. So I've come up with some things that, from my perspective, connect what you just saw, some of you, and what is, what's on the stage and what's on the page. And here's one of the things that I love about Norton Owen, who is the director of preservation and curates these talks, about the pairing of you two together, is, Vladimir, today you're here as an author, thinking about dance making from that perspective. And Moses, you are here as a choreographer, even though you both wear multiple hats in the dance world all the time. Kind of a seat of your pants discovery in the laboratory of the dance studio versus the kind of perspective of talking about how you're doing it. So Vladimir, maybe you could just, before we talk about the content of the book, what made you want to write a book about how to make a dance?
Well, we, the choreographers, make dances. We do not write. And we are very lonely by making dances. We try to figure it out by trial and error. There are not a lot of books written for choreography by choreographers. There are a lot of biographies. Barton Graham has one, Merce Cunningham, everybody. Everybody has a book about how they choreograph. But there are very few books about how to choreograph. There is one written in 1760 by a French choreographer called Jean-Georges Noverre. And then nothing happened for 200 years. And then an American choreographer, believe it or not, the second choreographer who have written book, How to Choreograph in General, is an American choreographer. Her name is Doris Humphrey, The Art of Making Dance, 1958. And so this is actually kind of the third book. You know, I have choreographed for 25 years, and then I have been also writing a lot. My mother was a very avid writer. So I was thinking that I was kind of somehow chosen by accident to inherit both the ability to choreograph and to understand how choreography works somehow from not my own perspective, from general perspective. And then the ability to write. Of course, I'm from Bulgaria originally. I have been in this country for 32 years, 33. So I had to learn the language. The book is in English. And I had a great team who did some editing and did help me to get through the process. The book basically, we interview hundreds of choreographers. And it turned out that many of them, no matter if they're Martu Graham or Merce Cunningham or Balanchine, Wayne McGregor or Akram Khan or Twala Tarp, it turns out that they have very different ways of working and making dances, and yet they're crossing points. And this book examines the crossing points, how to make a dance.
So Moses, I wonder if you could think back to before. You've been making work for a long time, and so you now have some methods that you count on as an experienced choreographer.
Yes, I think what can energize you at any age and any interest in being a choreographer, which could contribute to being interested in anything creative. And so how do you get there? Most of it is that you need to slow down a bit and focus on whatever it is that's around you. Van Gogh never went beyond his doorstep, basically. Few trips to the wheat field. But a lot of it was people just brought bouquets of flowers to him. And he wrote in his memoirs about how it was very nice to establish your life visually and then try to express it, you know, through painting, or choreography, or something like that, some reaction to it. So you have to be something that you can react to, which is you're maybe deeper into your own, into the soil of your soul, you know, in your backyard, that kind of thing.
Wait, I'm thinking back to the early days of MOMIX.
Yes, very early.
I mean, how did you learn to slow down? I mean, what was like, because that anticipates that you were maybe like trying a whole bunch of ideas. And
my background is dairy farming and skiing, and so I was born moving, either like hoeing cornfields or in the end skiing downhill. It was all about some type of physical motion. So I had a pretty strong physical education, not a dance education, but connecting who you are by how you move. In this case, down a glacier at top speed with the Austrian ski team to learn how to be a downhill racer. And so that's what I did each summer rather than going to a ballet school. But it gave me a lot of courage with the body to kind of express yourself and not have no fear. Eins, zwei, drei, no fear. These Austrians would tell me. So these were inspirational characters, and they contained energy because they were so solar powered, really. They were outdoors. And that's what I loved about movement, but I didn't like being inside. And so outdoor sports, you know, and that kind of thing became a theater that we did pre-Pilopolis, which is called the Vermont Natural Theater. If I can just explain quickly that it was taking a tour of my family's farm in northern Vermont and in the Northeast Kingdom. And we got Ellen Lovell, the dance head of the dance council in Vermont, to arrange 40 witnesses to see my company that we called the Vermont Natural Theater. And of course, it was in this basin of green field. And over the one side, I dressed myself as a little white, I put a sheet over myself and made it like a ghost that they would curiously follow wherever I went. And so the audience, including the Council on the Arts, had the unique experience of having 50 head of milking black and white Holsteins zigzagging, following a little ghost right at them. It's an unusual experience. We never even used the word dance, but there was there was a lot of udders swinging and terror in the audience. And at the very end, I dove into a ditch. The cows lose their object of pursuit, and a little bell rings, and the audience shakily gets up and heads to the next event that would help through some kind of human interaction to show orchard grass blowing in the breeze. And so you try to connect with what nature already is there. How can you contribute to a walk in the fall or the late summer in a Vermont farm through various fields and lakes and woods, and do little scenes that really don't interrupt the very fact that you're out walking in a beautiful nature and connecting with it. It was the Vermont Natural Theater before Pilopolis.
It's fascinating to hear you describe that, because I think the seeds of that seem like they.
But today you can see in Sleep No More and various types of theater that are demanding that kind of immersiveness in it. You're not just looking at a box, you are in the box, or you're in the orchard, or you're in a dark alley in lower Manhattan. You're there. That immersive theater is interesting. And technologically, your tech group here, we had a good chat with some young, brilliant minds about how technology can can change.
I want to stop you from talking about.
Subject.
Yep.
Yes,
hold on, because I want to just say that.
You're the choreographer. You do what you got to do.
The choreographer in search of serious editing.
Let me bring Vladimir into the conversation here, because you were talking a little bit about two things that tie to what Vladimir talks about exploration for a choreographer. First, you talked about movement and how your interest as an athlete informed your investigation, and then creativity comes into it. But Vladimir, you also write that choreographers have to have a scholastic research, that creative research is important, movement research is important, and the third aspect is scholastic research. Could you talk a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yes, so choreographers by nature are very creative and intuitive and instinctive. And yet there is also a intellectual side to the creative process. The book is called Creating and Crafting. And interestingly enough, creating tends to be very impulsive, very intuitive, comes from the guts, while crafting is calculated, methodical, learned, skilled, controlled. So choreographer has to kind of have both hats. He has hat, I don't have hat today, I'm so sorry about it. But mine is not having a hat, though I'm intuitive, I guess. And you're the intellectual, or in reverse. Basically, it means
reverse intellectuals, yes.
There you go. There you go.
Dumber and happier.
So basically, by interviewing so many groundbreaking choreographers of today and reading about their creative practices of past choreographers, it came to me that there should be a balance between those two skills of basically maneuvering, learning about a topic the choreographer wants to tackle, number one, and number two, what the guts and what the instincts of tackling this topic can bring to the project to completion. And it's always this very fine balance. So a choreographer on one hand wants to learn, if they're making a piece about a beauty that is sleeping, that has been done before, and yet what would be the choreographer's new idea of bringing to that existing idea? For example, the Sleeping Beauty does wake up, but it's in the 25th century. Wow. Then suddenly the story changes. So the preparation of the choreographer for the work is both intellectual and also intuitive. A choreographer pretty much wakes up in the morning and doesn't have an idea what they're going to do. They go through the day somehow improvisationally. Most of the time, we're lost in our own process. Many choreographers begin the work with a waterfall of ideas that gradually gets into a tiny little river, then into the pipe, into a glass of water that they will give you, from which you take a sip and say, it's nice and fresh from the mountain of Berkshire.
Perfectly said.
So I actually,
on your way out.
I actually want to ask you about this notion of the choreographer's job, right? There's the kind of the beautiful idea of it being this. A wellspring of inspiration comes to you as an artist, and I wonder, Moses, if you could say something about waiting for the muse to come to you or not.
Well, you have to know where to wait. At least have confidence that there is a chance that your muse will visit you. If you're, I never say if you're honest with yourself. If you can be convincing and dishonest at the same time, this kind of balance that we talk about. Yeah, that would be something that you would allow yourself as an artist to be a bit of a rebel, and you're in a danger zone of not coming back to where you were, but maybe that's the plan. You keep metamorphosing into something else. It gives you longevity to change radically. Maybe every half hour. You're just something else, and it doesn't have to be human, which is the excitement about life itself, is the connectedness to the plant, the animal, and the mineral. And, I think even MOMIX, in its small way, makes references to that human form that is combining with something from nature that does nurture. I'm a bit of a Naturmensch, not to mention it, I think. This is kind of...
So
I'm sorry.
I particularly said waiting for the muse to see the grimace.
German, yeah.
to see the grimace on your face, Vladimir.
Yeah, we do not believe in now that it's just inspiration. It's barely in. I'll quote a colleague of mine, a very wonderful choreographer. Her name is Crystal Pite. She
really?
Yeah, so she said that she
Kid
doesn't.
Pivot is the company that has been here at the Pillow, and her work has been performed by Ballet BC, among other companies, Hubbard Street Dance Chicago, for example.
So she says that she doesn't believe in inspiration, she believes in hard work. Inspiration is pretty much sometimes a word, a sentence, a piece of music, something that you encounter every day. You can just literally wake up, open the refrigerator, and boom, that is the inspiration. Actually, X, ready to be done in an omelette. But in her case, in Crystal Pite's case, the act of creating dance, and it's already in the book, it's actually the act of learning about the world through dance. Basically, there is a chapter in the books called Educating an Idea. As we create the dance, we're actually learning how the world functions. Moses said it beautifully. We learn about ourselves, we learn about the nature, about the rocks, about the rivers, about each other. Sometimes dance helps us to get through the day.
Yes. Can I just say something?
Please interrupt.
There's movement that communicates non-verbally in heightened way. It's kind of a new primitivism. What can I say? It is. I think that the fact that with her choreography, you see a body move, you hear not the words, but you hear the voices that are just so completely connected to how bodies are moving in strange dance angles and beyond what you would as a natural person. So you just the verbal exchange created such a visual excitement. I wouldn't know what it was. It was quite engaging. I think it's very interesting.
In Pite's work in particular, that you're talking about.
Yes, it's very new ways to go at. How we could be, how strange do you get before you feel that no one cares? You're gone.
I established a little committee of scholars, international scholars in choreography, and so we kind of start studying how choreographers work a little bit in more depth. So in Crystal's case, it's very interesting that they actually, so let's back up for a second. There are 3 ways to choreograph if you decide one day to try that. Even tomorrow. So the first way, and usually the starting choreographers are the so-called directional choreographers. So the choreographer comes into the studio, there is a material prepared, they start to teach you material. So the choreographer wants things, they want to do something, and they tell you what to do. And
you're saying they come in, they have movement material prepared, the steps, the movement vocabulary, and they say, learn this material from me. Yeah.
So basically the directional choreographer, he has an idea, and he's saying, to the dancer, this is the idea, follow me. That's
not
the first,
way you work, Moses. We will talk about that in a
that's
moment.
the first level. Then there is a second level that is a little bit more elevated. Usually, if you're a young choreographer, you will start with the directional-based choreography. The second line is called the improvisational direction choreography, which means that a choreographer comes with an idea, initial idea, and then he invites the dancers to somehow contribute to that idea, movement-wise, idea-wise, conceptually. And so then the choreographer kind of considers and solicits ideas from the participants in the project. So that's the second level. And then finally we go to the nirvana level, which is the last final level that we talk about Crystal about it, which is the so-called integrational choreographer. So you actually do not choreograph. Strangely enough, on the level of nirvana, on the third level, you don't choreograph. You actually integrate ideas who are given to you, they're solicited, they exist out there. You actually, like walking into a market, a fresh market of produce, you grab things, you get things in your basket, and you go home and you make salad. But you didn't really make that tomato. It has pre-existed. So this is basically the new 21st century method of working that also the book addresses, the so-called integrative method.
So I just want to point out that this is the underpinning of the kind of understanding of choreography that you would find in reading the book. And I think that you can choose to adopt that language or understanding of hierarchy, which is certainly a useful tool for explaining it to people who have never thought about how you're assembling a work. But then I think that Moses, if I were to say, I would say that that has been your way of working, that you collaborate with the dancers and you collaborate with the designers.
Well, yes. Many times we're the designer that says, we need to do something about the garden. What can we do? I grow tens of thousands of marigolds, and they suddenly become at least a suggestion to the board for approval to go further with what you could do as a sculptor or a painter to make a marigold with dancers. We chose 5 women, but to see if we could work to design a costume that would metamorphose from top to bottom, so the flower itself is doing the samba and other kinds of modes of dance as the marigold descends to this magic carpet that flies off and draws in the male hornets. Although I heard they should be female hornets. The men are...
So for those of you who did not see the performance yet, you will see a section from Botanica called Marigolds, and it's very much about both the action of the dancers, but the inspiration from your garden.
Yes, so you could go from the garden to the barn, which is what we call our studio in Washington, Connecticut, the barn. We go figure it out in the barn. And so, again, how we tend to work is to bring in an image that we almost worked collectively, collaboratively to sculpt. You're not thinking about anything about movement. You're thinking about a sculptural image. And we work on that with fabric and various props to extend the range of the body, as you see in the show, in part. I mean, but it's organically worked out. A lot of times, I was saying in the talk yesterday, is that maybe they come in with a little miniature hula hoop, and Cynthia picked it up at a Halloween shop. It's bioluminescent, and if you roll it, kind of interestingly in a certain kind of light, it's quite a magical rolling of a rainbowish orb. And then when the dancer's playing with it and starting to, so it's organic. One move creates another move, and that move was made by the collective you who were out playing like children. And we videotape it, but it's the unconscious behavior collectively that it is always still a miracle if you can set up the situation for that kind of divine interaction with each other. The play, in other words.
I just want to say Cynthia Quinn, Associate Director of MOMIX and longtime performer. So the thing that I am also thinking about here is the way that Vladimir, you write about, and Moses, you talk about the importance of putting your work in conversation with other art forms, other natural forms. Maybe, Vladimir, you could say something about that, why you think it's important for choreographers to not just be thinking about who's making a dance and what dances have come before.
Yes, definitely, as Moses pointed out, giving space and time for other production components to enter the work, and they enter differently from different entry points and different doors and windows and chimneys. It's very important. As a matter of fact, what we work so hard as choreographer, and Moses, I'm sure you'll agree, the movement material is maybe only 50% of what you actually see on stage and what you sense on stage. The rest of it is a lot of the overall production, the visual costumes and lights and the entirety of the performance itself. So in the book also we kind of classify this with words, fancy intellectual words like interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and my favorite that we just invented out there in the market, transdisciplinary, meaning that we are like marrying right now things so cohesively. As Moses says, sometimes a costume designer can give movement idea. Sometimes a dancer can suggest a lighting cue that fits so well that solo. And so basically it's more of an integrative process, and it's very important for us, the choreographers, to have that space and ability and, of course, hopefully the funding, right, Moses, to afford these additional components and additional production art form to enter our creative process. Without them, we are useless. And yet, just to say, the book finishes with a very important sentence. At the end of the day, we the choreographers, you the choreographer, our main instrument is and always will be the human body. No lights, no music, no sets, no gimmicks, just the human body. So how the human body can express things that we cannot say with words.
Well, I'm so glad that you were talking about inspiration potentially coming from a dancer in the room. And Moses, I want to drop this in your lap. This is a recent audition notice for a MOMIX dancer. This is just an excerpt of it. MOMIX looks for exceptionally creative and athletic dancers with strong ballet, modern, and partnering. Our artists need to be physically strong and athletic, comfortable working with props, and open to creativity and inventiveness, while also demonstrating musicality and exceptional ability to move. We invite you, wait, can I just tell you the last thing it says? We invite you to attend a live performance to have an understanding of the type of work we do in our shows.
There's one other criteria that guarantees at least 3 years working in MOMIX, is the new dancer's ability to laugh at their new director's jokes. And that should be how you end that. I always say that to them, and then we go from there. I test them with really non-jokes, and if they laugh, I will know.
I mean, the reason
that's jokes.
Fake
right?
laugh,
Yeah.
yes.
The reason I was looking at the audition notice is because I think it ties a little bit to the idea that Vladimir, you were talking about the. There are dancers who want to be told exactly what to do, and that's not the dancer you're looking for.
Well, if they say something interesting, we're all ears.
No, but I mean, you don't want to tell them exactly what to do. You want them to be part of the conversation.
They want to have that I might, and then I never would, of course. But just between you and I never even think of it, really. You brought it up, I think. It's every time you have a human encounter, it's a divine intervention of great power. And so we should respect your next statement.
Well, just like the choreographers work different ways, the dancers also have different range of creativity and contribution to the movement material. Some dancers feel very comfortable of improvising and enhancing the choreographer's ideas. Other dancers feel more hesitant to contribute. Usually there is even a clean division between the genres. Typically, ballet dancers tend to take information in as the choreographers want them to do. Yeah. Very rigid technique, very strict vocabulary. So the ballet dancers are used to take directions from the choreographer to the extent of, oops, no, a little bit less, a little bit more, So to the millimeter. While with modern dance, explain.
I would say that I would try to go in as a catalyst for choreography. And I would like to eliminate, or at least lower the fear that you're feeling in the collective space that you're sharing. And why is that? And you go almost psychological on everyone in order to free them up a bit to play more freely and closer to what they can contribute to the overall choreography.
I mean, that does seem like what you said earlier about having to slow down.
I think I said that before, but better.
But that you said that you have to slow down, and so it seems like you have to that you have to invite dancers into that kind of relaxation to play and take risks.
Yes, and you need to take some time to gain their trust so that they can show you what they can show you, and just bringing that out can be an energizing experience, even though you never actually finish the ballet. You've had an energizing experience. That is part of it, an important part. The rehearsals, the day-to-day grind, into something that is fantastic. When you receive that collective trust, we're all in this together. Philosophy can energize the overall project to some other level.
We've talked very briefly about design, and we're not going to be able to talk about things in depth, of course.
I know.
But I want to just... there's a chapter in the book titled Melody in Motion, and Vladimir asks the question, are music and dance best friends forever? If he asked you that question and none of us were listening, what's your answer? Are music and dance best friends forever?
Did you all see that it's Jacob's Pillow's Nature? Yes. Did I ever see what?
Do you think that music and dance are best friends, and are they best friends forever?
I have no idea what that is. One does aspire to have best friends forever, but there's always a bit of doubt as to whether that is, in fact, a reality, not to depress the evening any further. But I don't know if they happily get along all the time. When we get older, do we think, like 70% is okay with us? It's down into the 50s and, just kind of teeter-tottering, 50-50, yes, maybe, whatever you think, honey.
But it's clear that you think deeply about the music that we're going to hear.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's part from us walking into the theater to the intermission music that invites us back into the theater, and the music that sends us out into the world after the performance today.
Well, I spent some time trying to modulate the Paul Simon at the intermission. In the early time it was a little loud, and I said, people want to talk at intermission about maybe what they just saw, and you don't want to cause them to shout. It's an intermission to relax, get ready for the second act. And so I'm working on the actual level of the voice. As if it's a part of the show, which in fact for MOMIX and for me, from the moment you walk in, you're in that environment that we're controlling. If I see people waving their programs even before the show starts, I'm up to whoever power can help me turn the air conditioning up or down. Is it down? No, cold down, air conditioner up. Confusing.
To give you a little bit of context why we use that title, which is actually hilarious. So choreographers work with music differently. They have different relationships with music. Some choreographers start with the music. They count every single beat and they put movements on every beat. Other choreographers, like Merce Cunningham, they do not care. They just do the movement without music. And they ask John Cage to write something in the other room, and they never really connect until the day of the show. Can you imagine frightened dancers? They hear actually the music the moment they start performing. They have never heard it before. So we have this humongous range of choreographers being very, very tight with the music, and choreographers who are taking the music like ambience. It may be there, may not be there. So to summarize the relationships between the choreographer and the music, it's like marriage, or like two people who could be married, separated, or divorced. Right? And so we picked the word friendship because in the friendship, no matter if you're married, separated, divorced, you kind of have a relationship with this person, or we have a relationship with this art form. As Moses just mentioned, and actually Mara completely correctly said, we the choreographers care about the music because we care about what you're going to hear when you see our movement material.
And I do a lot of workshops with my eyes closed, setting up a playlist to bring into the playing field, the studio in the dark, to start the show. Balanchine famously said, I said this last night, that he was approached by some press and they asked him, Mr. B, what is your next ballet? And he said, I have no idea. You know, I haven't chosen the music. Interesting that the story is in the rhythm and in the flute music, or it's whatever the music is setting up for you to further paint with your dance theater or whatever you want to add to it. I remember Mark Morris saying something quite interesting, how fearful he was of always using brilliant classical music, Mozart or Brahms, because he was very worried by the movements that he did or didn't do would upset the subtle balance and genius of the music, and you're up against the best. It was an interesting comment, I thought. I remember him saying that.
So,
it's cool.
So the other sense that we should talk about is the visual. We've talked a little bit about the action of the dancers, and now what we're hearing in the audience, what they're hearing in the studio. But clearly the visual is an important part on the stage, but also before the stage. Before I ask you about your work as a photographer, I want to ask you, Vladimir, to say something about how you selected the numerous beautiful images you've included in the book, and also why it was important to have images in the book.
We the choreographers, we are very visual people, and as you see, choreography is visual art in motion by the human body. So we are visual artists by nature and kind of cross over that art form too. It was extremely important for me and the publisher, which is Routledge in London and New York, to create a book and material that is very visual. Choreographers don't like reading dance text. They want to look at dance pictures and dance images. So the book has literally, the book is 580 pages, and it has 510 images. So you would not be bored if you open any page of the book. We collaborated with a very, very good friend of mine who has been making images for almost a half decade. She's a wonderful artist, photographer, maybe the best. Actually, she is the best in the United States of America. Her name is Lois Greenfield. Lois Greenfield, she lives in New York. She has an astounding gallery of images, and she has photographed, of course, also MOMIX, right? Among some of the best national and international dancers. So we had a wonderful conversations with her to basically license hundreds of images that we then selected and combined with other images, stage and visual art to make the book more visually enhancing.
But also historic images. They're images from the Pillow archives, from the archives at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. So a vast,
Yes.
so not just a single artist perspective, as brilliant as it is. And I'll just remind everybody that Lois Greenfield's aha moment about dance came in photographing David Parsons, who brings his company here in a couple of weeks. So you'll be able to see that source of inspiration.
And I actually wanted to give a personal credit to two individuals here. Of course, Norton Owen, who gave us permission to use some of the enormous archival of Jacob's Pillow, the best in the world, alongside Harvard Dance Collection. And another person who is actually on the board of our organization, ICOMS, who on multi-layered approach and support for this book to come over, Michael Lillis, who is right there. Wave your hand, Michael. Thank you so much for making sure that this book actually materializes last year. So greatly appreciate it.
So, yes, thank you. Moses, I want we can see on the cover of the book on this music stand a book titled the book.
Another one.
The book is titled "The Dance Must Follow: 16 Cantos and an Epilogue" by Phil Holland. Tell us about the photographs.
Well, the photographs are by Moses Pendleton, and his favorite subject during that era were various forms of sunflowers in various degrees of growth and death. And he continues, I've read, to be still interested, although dried cabbages are entertaining most of it, or maybe 70% of his visual and emotional being at the moment.
So, can you say something about how you think you the choreographer and you the photographer?
Yes, no. I have to jump right into the fact that what this book is, and it might be interesting for you to see, it was put into canto form, you know, cantos, so that you could flip any page, read one, and get a dose without feeling any necessity to move on, you know, so it's useful that way.
Also, we can combine the titles of the book. So it's basically you, the choreographer, comma, the dance must follow.
You know, but the initial title of this, which isn't shown in the current book, it's called The Dancer's Craft. And the subject of The Dancer's Craft was yours truly. And I will admittedly apologize for what you might think he's talking about in his perfect iambic pentameter. That are these cantos, which is kind of the story of a mildly creative existence, glorified by his poem, no doubt. But so, you know, it's a very useful book for me personally.
Does it feel like the same part of your creative energy that makes a dance that leads you to look at a photograph or make a photograph?
Well, it does take a while to understand what you feel 70% sure of. That's what you're looking at. And, you know, every change is a change. If you're sensitive to change, in the change of light and all this. And it's, so you're always slowing down. I keep saying this earlier about slowing down so that you can, it's not just smelling the roses, it's smelling an oncoming spring rain 3 hours before it happened. You know, that kind of awareness of being kind of more connected to, in my case especially, in some form of nature. And it does nurture. I assure you, and you all know that, you're still here breathing well and looking fairly happy. And,
we have time for a couple
lucky folk.
A couple of questions or comments from the audience. Please. I'm going to repeat them all so everybody can hear. Yes. This is an observation that he has a friend who studies Euclid but does not want Euclid's definitions to define his artistic output. And he sees in your work the possibility that physics is present and having an impact. And are you thinking about that in the mirror, in the waves, about these properties of physics as something that's driving your choreographic exploration?
Well, I think you can ask yourself, what is it? What is it in our human genome that wants to tell us to create anything? What is it that is satisfying, and what image comes out? You know, people in New England in early times were very fearful that creativity was a sign of the devil. It was something you needed to harness. It was an energy that could be good or bad, like AI. You know, it's black and white, possibly, and dangerous because it's extreme.
So not particularly using it as I'm looking at this definition and I'm going to try to explore what physics means to me. You're interested in what does this rope do?
Well, you could think that way if you wanted to, and you could not think that way.
Good one.
I'm almost thinking your theory of balance, you know, and if elected, you know.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is a great question, thank you. First, he's hearkening back to your comment about Mark Morris and the relationship that Morris has with music, and his fear about living up to the expectations set by the music, and then drawing a correlation to your closing piece on the program, Dance to Bach, which also brings to mind work by choreographer Paul Taylor.
I thought that too.
So, are you afraid of the associations you might make? Are you afraid of Bach?
Now I am.
I've put the fear into you. He did not build that into his
You are a
question.
scary thing. You are a scary thing.
What about those references?
We don't take much seriously, unfortunately. You know, it's kind of the way we slip and slide and go, downhill, willingly, but with, good spirit. So, we knew that. Why not at the end of the show play Bach? No one ever boos Bach. That's how we, that's how we started. We started with, gold chip, secure the bass with Bach. Yeah, well, that was, possible subtitle.
I mean,
but now it's called If You Need Somebody. And that was Cynthia's wonderful decision to eliminate, 2/3 of the per diems that dancers require. They just have to be a kind of, they'll have to look human-like, but, we'll keep them all down in the storage room, piled on top of each other. And then you have a wonderful group piece. Well, kind of, sometimes it just comes down to that. And luckily, we live in a kind of like mom and pop and kind of poor-minded mentality. How can we economize? And then the trouble is, I keep taking that further, and I can't even imagine why I'm here.
Becomes a source of inspiration, right? Right.
That's true. The human ultimately is inspiring as long as you feel humans, evolving and keeping up with the Smiths or whoever they are,
The Morrises, apparently.
The Morrises,
right?
yes.
Or the Paul Taylors.
The Paul Taylor. Oh, no, yes. Yeah. No, when we started playing with that, obviously anything with the classical beat, you can think of Paul Taylor. That's how powerful that classical music is. That is, indelible image on your mind, and you're playing with Bach here, and that's. And so when we started playing with Bach, everyone's saying, it looks so Paul Taylor-like. That's because it sounds like it, And I'm not putting it down.
Right.
There's a reality to that. And so
that
you're quoting, in a way, if you're a Joyce or something, you could say that we were consciously making an allusion to Paul Taylor, but we do a little changement. If you know his exact ballet, exactly what he did, you realize that it's much different,
What you're both saying, though, is how important it is to see work.
Yeah.
And how important it is to listen to music, to look at nature.
Yeah.
If you have more questions for Moses Pendleton, come up informally. If you're ready to buy your copy of the book, there's a table at the back of the room where Vladimir will be signing them. And go make a dance. It's really fun. Thanks for both of you for giving us
Thank you so much.
in.